Good morning, everybody. This is the NOFC podcast, and it's episode 18. We have one of, apparently, a celebrity we have here. We have a goddamn celebrity here, and I am in awe of the fact that we have this young lady. This is
Not
Cherry.
worthy.
This is crazy how our internet broke, but episode 18, I'll just get the title of the podcast. It's called Police Dispatcher, the life in the 911 trenches. And our guest is no other than Terry Jo Gallagher. And although I don't know much about her, during the course of our podcast, Terry Jo, you friends requested me, and I've seen a little bit about you. And once Carm posted the introduction to you being on, holy shit, everybody loves you. And that's absolutely great. And and we talked beforehand on, like, you just can't fake that stuff. And it's just a testament to obviously the type of person you are. And we're going to get into more of that. But, like, I just think that's amazing that there's not one person that said anything other than, like, Terry Jo. I can't wait to hear Terry Jo. She's so great. I'm
sure there's a few. They just didn't say
anything.
There's a few.
They kept quiet. So, Carm, go ahead. Obviously, you know Terry Jo much better than I do, but give your little intro.
Yeah, good morning, everybody out there in NOFC land. Carm Gaffredo, co-host of the No One Fucking Cares podcast. I'll just say it. Before we go forward with all of the glorious world that is Terry Jo, Jay, I have a little surprise for you that I want to impart. I was down on Long Island yesterday for a memorial, a one-year memorial for my Uncle Rich, who had passed last year, who was a Vietnam veteran. Ran into none other than Rich Trimble Jr., my loving cousin who you've met, and he provided this to you for your collection. Yeah, it's this.
That is gigantic.
That's what she said.
No, she did not. No, she didn't.
And
cool.
So a couple of patches, and apparently he's going to be coming up at some point. We were talking about this yesterday for some laughs and some brews. So I just wanted to mention that. I had a wonderful time yesterday with my family in honor of my uncle, who was a legend to say the least, Uncle Rich, 1 year later. So I just want to give a shout out to my family, to Buster in particular, because it was great to see him, my Aunt Angela, all my cousins, and this wonderful blowout. I posted some pictures on Facebook. So the many hats of Terry Jo Gallagher. How should we begin this? How should we go with this? She is a legend in the community. I worked with Terry Jo, pretty much all throughout my career when I was in Zone 3, but specifically when I was in the back room as an investigator at the SB Catskill Barracks and the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. And one thing everybody will say about Terry Jo is that she was kind of the center of the universe there. She was the real fucking deal. Like, everybody that worked there from probably the 90s, early 90s on knows her reputation as the communications specialist there. She really was the person who was the glue that held that place together. As I described in the promo, all the parties that you arranged, all the things you did, just your name just speaks for itself, and everybody just loves you. Well, not everybody, because it's impossible for everybody to love, right?
True.
You said that earlier.
That's true. Yeah, no, I know there's a few.
Yeah. But we're very, very happy to have you on. If you want to give us a little bit about your history, your life, currently, what's going on, and your extensive NYSP career. Stage is yours, my dear.
Okay. Well, I did get to retire 3 years ago, so we'll start with the most, I don't say it's the most positive part in my life right now. But I did have 34 years. Oh, did you lose me? Because it says reconnecting.
You're good.
No? Okay.
We got you.
So I did have 34 years with the state police, and I started in 1988 in February. I got hired to start in Hurley, which is now Kingston, but at the time it was Hurley. And I worked there for 6.5 years, and then I got voluntold, which means that division tells you where you're going. You don't really get a choice with that. I got voluntold to go to Highland, and I worked
Been
in
there.
Highland for 3.5 years. Uh, so the reason we got, all of us did, all the ComSpecs in Kingston got shipped to Highland, and the reason for that was Ulster County got 911 because prior to that there was no 911, and the Highland station was a backup for the 911 system in county, and so we got shipped down there. And I was there for 3.5 years, and then Greene County was getting 911, and so I had the opportunity to come to Greene County, which is where I live, and I did that in 1997, and I was in Catskill for 27 years until I retired in 2022. I also, and I want to do this now, I want to give a shout out to, God rest her soul, Diane Berg, who was really by my side through my whole career. We started within a month of each other in Hurley, and she went to Highland with me, and then she ended up coming to Catskill. And I also have to give a shout out to Winslow Marsters,
Yes.
who I worked 27 years with Winslow in Catskill, another person that was there a very long time as well. So, yeah. So
Amazing
that's
people.
that. Yes. And they were both great people. And, so that's it. It was an amazing career. I had a lot of fun. I have met hundreds of troopers because Catskill at one point was a really hard station to get into, but it then became kind of a transfer station. A lot of people just from G Troop, Albany area, and now there's a lot of people from Long Island there. But anyway, they would come and they'd stay 6 months, they'd put their memos in and they would leave. So it really did become a transfer station. So I worked with hundreds of troopers. I kind of wish I took pictures of them all, but yeah. And so when I first came to Catskill, there was actually ended up being 5 ComSpecs there. There was also Essie Rauba was there. She came from I think she was in Cortland at the time, and then Dornelli was there as well. And so at one point there was 5 of us there, and then that dwindled down to just me in the end. They're trying to push me out to get rid of me, but whatever. Yeah, so I'm loving retirement. I think it was a good time for me to leave. It's changed. It's not what it used to be.
Yep.
As far as the job goes, I do still work part-time for Sorgeties PD. I've been there since 2012, so coming up on 13 years at the end of the year. I know one of the things was, why do I still do that? Not really that I want to. Sorry, Sorgeties people, but I need the extra money, so it helps. So there I am, and it's kind of what I know. It's what I've done. So, to go somewhere else, it's just kind of what I know. And I also clean houses a couple days a week for some extra income. But I do love retirement. I love the days off when I can do what I want. I do a lot of travel.
Two
So
quick observations.
Yeah, go ahead.
You got to work with 2 of the chiefs there were phenomenal leaders. One of which I'm going to give a shout out to Bob Nuzzo, who is very good friends with Terry Joe, who's a great person who is a mentor to me. Bob Nuzzo, and also Lou Barbaria Sr. when he was the chief there, who was a previous guest on our podcast, obviously for the submarines and outlaw motorcycle gangs. So just 2 quick shout outs. I know Terry Joe, you probably hopefully you say the same thing.
Yeah,
I want to bring something up. Carm's got a lot of fucking mentors. I tell you one thing. I don't never met somebody with so goddamn many fucking mentors. But good. Terry Joe, like we discussed earlier, and I don't want to cut you off. Please get into wherever you want to go with this. But we discussed earlier the importance of specific stations and the relationships between like troopers and ComSpecs. And obviously based on just a pure outreach that people had when Carm posted that video, it's to me it's extremely clear that you forged those relationships and maintained them and cared. I had a few when I first started in Middletown, as we talked before, that like you would bring your kids into the station. So now when you're out on a call and there's a pursuit, or there's, now that brings it home to that dispatcher. It brings it home to them, and it kind of puts them in their feels a little bit, to the sense where they're like, oh man, I know that this guy has a kid.
Right.
And for me, I explained to you, when I transferred down to Rockland, they have more of a county dispatch. But they were great, nothing against them, and I would try to visit them as much as possible. But just by the sheer numbers of how many people they were dispatching for, that personal relationship was kind of slightly lost. So I guess this is my roundabout way of saying kudos to you for being one of the, maybe not few, but one of the stronger, obviously, representatives of the communication slash dispatcher life that all of us needed as we went through our careers. And I can only tell by the type of person you are that you were on top of where my troopers were, what calls they were at, when's the last time they called out for a status check. All of those things I can tell you did. And for me, I remember thinking oh man, does whoever know that I'm here in the middle of no man's land and I haven't checked in 20 minutes because I don't hear a status check. So that's kind of my perspective. And I think for you, that kind of is what is true to you in your heart. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm gonna piggyback off of what you're saying, and from working with her extensively over the years, there's some really crazy stuff. Nobody did it. I can honestly say, and I know I'm biased in saying this, nobody did it better than Terry. She always paid attention to who was out there, what they were doing, whether there was a status check. And you could tell when the shit was hitting the fucking fan and it was getting serious. You could hear it in her voice when the concern was there, and it was usually always freaking justified, because she was always dialed in to the pulse of where the troopers were and the investigators and the sergeants during critical incidents. So absolutely what you're saying, Jay, totally true.
Well, one of the things, it's kind of funny that you say that, because I was thinking about this when I was reflecting back. Back when I started, everything was a file. File 1, a file 8, a file 7. So, and it wasn't all that long ago. I was in Catskill, and I ended up having to dial back an abandoned 911 call. And on the third attempt to dial back, it was a bank robbery. But the moral of the story is I gave it out, and I always tried to make sure that I stayed calm, because I didn't want to sound like I was out of control, but I was like, all patrols needed to respond to Wyndham for file 8, blah, 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 at the bank. And one of the guys in Hunter later on, one of the troopers says to me, I didn't know what the hell a file 8 was, but I knew it was important if she gave it out that way.
That is funny.
And that was like old school coming back from my memory, to give it out as a file 8, because now we just give things out as they are. You've responded to an assault, you've responded to domestic, but way back you just gave it as files. You had to know the file numbers.
So if you would explain briefly to the viewers what a file means in layman's terms, because the troopers that watch this know exactly what you're talking about. Some of the other police officers know, but average people have no idea what a file is. Explain that.
Well, even some of the troopers don't know now, because I don't even know if they go over it. I think they go over it like really quick. I know in Catskill we still had the chart that told you what all the numbers were. I think it's still hanging there, but you would, like, for instance, and then so on the computer system, which back when it was the NICEBIN system, not what we, not the portal system that we use now, but so you would have to send particular files as well. So file 1 was a stolen vehicle, file 7 was a burglary, a file 12 was a homicide, file 8 was a robbery. So we tried to keep it like secret, I guess. I don't know. Respond to a file 8 at the bank. Respond to to such and such an address. I mean, we would sometimes say burglary, but you could say a file 7, but everybody knew what the files were. And it's basically because when you sent it on the computer system, the message, you would have to send it as that file. Whereas now it doesn't say anything. You go into the portal system, you call up a burglary, but it's all there. Like you don't have to do the file anymore. So
So basically, it was just an antiquated system to identify a particular crime that was happening or alleged to have happened. So your numbers from one to whatever, each number represented a crime that was potentially happening, and
yeah,
it was a cheat
Yes.
code for us
yeah,
essentially.
it's sort of like 10 codes. Like
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
can't
yeah,
really, I didn't have to learn 10 codes, thank God.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
10-4, we all know 10-4, but you know,
yeah.
all the other ones. So 10 codes, and there's some agencies that obviously still use the 10 codes. But we didn't have to use that. So
I,
so that
I,
one's kind of funny. You know, just on the whole centralized dispatch thing, I did contact my good friend John Jacob from K Troop. And so he was one that was kind of affected by the whole centralized dispatch. So I had to get dates from him. But so when we got to leave Highland, he went over to K Troop and had gone to Claverack or Claverack, whichever way people say it differently. But so that was again out in the field. And there was a captain over there, which I guess, you know, this is NOFC, no one fucking cares. So Captain Shepperly decided that he came up with this plan that was gonna save division a lot of money. And of course they bought what a hook, line, and sinker if they can hear that they're gonna save money, and brought the centralized dispatch idea to division, and they were like, this is a great idea. So then he got transferred. So then they closed the Claverack desk. I mean, there was still a trooper there, I guess, once in a while, but typically for dispatching. And then he had to go to Poughkeepsie. So then they started doing that throughout the state. Now it took them, so that started at, so in 1999, they started closing desks where there were just troopers. There was no compspecs there. And then in 2000, that's when they started closing the desks that were out in the field where they had compspecs and moving them to troop control points. And troop control points are, for people that don't understand what that is, it's your zone, it's your troop headquarters for each troop throughout the whole state. And that's where we lost over time. We started losing the connection with the compspecs that were in the field, with the road patrols. So I was lucky enough, and I had some great captains and some higher up people like the Bobby Nuzzo and the Pat Regan, who fought to
Yep.
keep Catskill open. And I got to retire from there, and I didn't have to get transferred to a troop control point, although there was other people that wanted that to happen, and that was a whole story in itself, which I don't think it's appropriate for this conversation, but we can have it over a drink sometime. But we lost the contact with the road patrol. So I had a rapport with every single trooper that came into the station. And when you're at a troop control point, you don't have that because so for instance, the troop control point for Troop F, which is where Greene County is a part of, spans from Greene County all the way down to Orange County where Middletown is. And that's like a 75-mile distance that way anyway, from here down to there. And so if I was, somebody from Greene County, the troopers from there are not coming to Middletown on a daily basis to go in that station. Whereas when I worked in Catskill, they came in obviously to work on a daily basis. And so you had the rapport. I knew about their families. They would sit at the desk with me. So we had many conversations about a lot of stuff. And so you just really became friends. And, if nothing else, it was work friends. Maybe you didn't go out with them all the time, but you were work friends. And that's truly been lost in the whole centralized dispatch. The other thing that's been lost in the centralized dispatch is I can sit in Catskill and people can say to me, there's a really bad accident at Story's Corners. Well, I know where Story's Corners is, but somebody, like if I was working in Middletown, or they transferred the phones to Middletown and somebody says that, somebody that's from down there isn't going to know where that is. And so you lose that personal touch with the people that you dispatch for. And I have to tell you, when that first started happening, I wrote a letter to the superintendent and I did get a response from him. And it was like, well, we kind of know that, but we're saving money. They don't care. They don't care that they've lost the contact with the public, and they have, because they're losing calls to other agencies. My true belief, and I saw this coming down the road 15 years ago, I truly believe that if they could just be an interstate patrol, they'd be thrilled with that, and they don't have to deal with the public, and they don't have to deal with many complaints. And that I find really sad, because we have lost contact with the public. We don't get troopers now that go, used to have senior guys that would take the new people. They'd go to all the courts. They'd go to the judges. They'd go to the towing yards. They'd go to all of these places that you relied when you had the shit hitting the fan. Oh, you got stuck in the middle of the night because you went into a field with your troop car? You need the tow guy to come out, right? They don't know who the tow people are. They don't do it. They don't have the personal contact, and that is what I truly find to be one of the saddest things. And it's not just the state police.
Yeah, but Terry Jo, also, what also is a good point, again, I'll use Carm's term, just piggybacking off of that, though, is just your basic, let's call them property checks, or, where you're just going to check on a business, whether it be a deli, whether it be your local gas station, whether it be a hotel. I remember working in Middletown, certain hotels, I would just make my rounds. Mm-hmm. I would get out of my patrol car. I would go into whoever was working the desk and say, "Hi, Trooper Sedita here. Just peeking my head in, making sure you're okay, letting you know that I'm working the area. Anything suspicious or anything, please either flag me down or call the station. Here's our number." And it's just creating that relationship. Yeah. And to your point, like, there probably are some people that do that here and there, but that is lost its art, probably through and through, for the most part.
Yeah. Well, Jay, we were just having this conversation about Rockland County. And I was just talking to Toby Schuler about it too. The same thing. That was my last command, and it was it's very disheartening, because you see the younger generation doesn't seem to have the same type of. And this is going to make me sound very old. I don't care, whatever. There's no ownership. There's no ownership of community anymore. There's a few people who still do the job, but overall, there used to be a lot more ownership. Exactly what you said. The tow companies. The people who you need to talk to, the emergency dispatchers at the 911 centers, firemen, schools. I used to stop in all the schools and pop my head in the office. And everybody would be like, "What's wrong?" And I'd be like, "Nothing, just popping in to say hello and see if you guys need anything. How's it going today at school?" The restaurants and the delis, just the community policing. The essence of community policing is to connect with communities and build those fucking relationships, because those are the most important relationships you can build, because the person you talk to in the deli could be the person who gives you the tip on the next homicide that you need to have that lead and that information on. And you knew me in that respect, Terry. I was a firm believer in that.
Yeah, but Carl, here's the thing. It's not only that. That's a definite benefit, but it's also letting these business owners and other entities know that you're a person just like them, and that you want to build a relationship, and that I'm not looking for a free tow when it's 3:00 in the morning and I got jammed up. I'm just looking for you to say, like, "Hey, like, here I am as a person. I have a relationship with you. If I call you, it's because I need you," or whatever. The deli person, going in because you care, and there's some authenticity to your relationship with whoever it is that you're having. And then obviously there's other thoughts on that, but it's just that. It's just creating relationships with your community more than anything.
And don't get me wrong, at the same time, when you end up in the middle of a median on, hypothetically, I don't know, State Route 209, where your troop car is on a snowbank and it's teetering like it's on the edge of a cliff in a cartoon, and you're stuck, and you go, "Fuck, this is not a good place to be, and I'm going to get jammed up, and who do I call? Oh, I'm going to call Ward Backus, because he's going to come get me quick," as the car is literally teetering side to side in that snow, and you're trying to rock and it's not working. Those relationships are super, super important. We've all been there. Every trooper that's been out there, every police officer that's been out there has known that feeling of helplessness. So when they call you on the radio, can you respond, "I'm temporarily off the radio"?
Yeah. So stand by. I'm in the middle of something. I'm held up.
Exactly.
So Terry, I don't know exactly where he wanted us to go, but one thing I wanted to bring up, Carm brought it up, and I did a little, not digging, but I did a little creeping, like the Facebook creep that you do. And I look back, and there's one thing that I noticed. You've been on this journey, and you've lost a lot of weight, and not saying you didn't look good before, but you look really good, and it looks like you're really taking the time to take care of yourself. And that's something that's near and dear to me. And I just wanted to bring that up because, like, I think that's amazing, and I commend you on that.
Well, thanks. And it's when I reflected back on that too, so, and I'm at this point in my life, number one, I don't care. Like, I'll just tell you. So when I first started, and probably because I've lost a fair amount of weight, I can tell you this too. So when I first started with the state police in 1988, I weighed 190 pounds. So, and people are like, how the hell do you know that? I'm like, look, when you've been overweight your whole life, there's certain areas in your life that you remember. And I had recently lost 40 pounds before I started with the state police. Well, when I worked in Hurley, we had Stewart's across the street, and we had the Hurley Mountain Inn across the street. So what did we do? We ate out all the time. And I was reflective. There was like Mr. Broadway, and there was all these great restaurants. And I would be like, I don't want to eat what I brought in. I'm going to eat out. So you start eating out all the time. And then when I went to Highland, did that change? No. We had the Hard Roll Deli, and we had Rossi's in Poughkeepsie, which was amazing. And they're still there, by the way. Mm-hmm. Really good food if you happen to be in Poughkeepsie.
Yes. And
then I came to Catskill, and we still did the same thing. So I gained a lot of weight. Then I had a baby. So, of course, we know how that goes for women. I hate the ones where, after they have the baby, they look like they never had a baby. So that wasn't me. But it took me just prior to me leaving the state police to find a program that worked for me, finally. And when I tell you I've done everything to lose weight, I mean everything. Every plan. I've had a couple of different surgeries. I've done everything. And so I did find a plan, and I am happy to say that I am down 107 pounds from my highest weight ever. Yeah. So
that's amazing. That's so cool.
Happy with that. I go to the gym. I go to Pilates. In fact, I had a Pilates class this morning. And I do Zumba once a week. And I feel so much better. I feel like I can live another 30 years. At least that's what I'm hoping for. And you really do feel so much better. Yeah. I mean, I was never one to just sit around. I was always very active. I belonged to the fire department. I belonged to Ladies Auxiliary. And in the fire department, I was always active. I mean, I would gear up and go into burning buildings, take the hose line, do all that kind of stuff. And I tried not to let it hinder me, but looking back now, it was tough sometimes. But yeah, so that's really been rewarding, but it almost took me leaving the state police, retiring to get where I needed to be, to fit in all the stuff that's helped me along the way too. So, but I'm not saying you have to retire to get fit. You don't. Yeah,
no, absolutely not. I'm kind of curious though, like, I know Carm is super cryptic on his protein mushroom shake and who he wants to give credit to but like, if you don't mind, because you said there are so many things that you tried and you put the effort in that didn't work. What do you think, in your opinion, pushed you over the edge to get you to this point where you are now, where not only do you seem extremely happy, but you look and are obviously in a healthy mind frame?
Great question, Jay. I was going to ask the same thing.
So I had, as far as my surgery, I had a lap band surgery, and I had a gastric sleeve done. The gastric sleeve is where they remove 3/4 of your stomach. And I was this close to having gastric bypass done. But my gut kept telling me, I don't think 3 times is going to be a charm for you. And I happened to be working, honestly, I was working the desk with one of the troopers, and he was telling me about his mother-in-law. And he was like, you need to do what she's doing. And I'm like, well, what is she doing? I've done everything else. And so he put me in contact with her. And that's what started for me. But I started with weight loss programs when I was in 6th grade. And so it's been my whole life. And I just felt I was just desperate. And I I don't know, you just get to a point that you just can't take the ups and downs anymore. And that's why people do surgeries. But
Yep.
none of it is a fix until you fix this. Because if
Yes.
you can't change the mindset, and you can't change, you know, just the way that you view food and you view social activities of like, I can go to that party and I don't need to drink and I don't need to eat everything that's on the buffet or whatever. You really, and it takes a while, and it takes hard work.
Yeah, and that's
But
kind of why I asked. I don't know if you noticed, but I asked in the sense of what put your brain in that different spot, because and it's not taking anything away from what you might have done
right.
previously, but to me, once your brain makes that complete switch to where you want to commit and make yourself better, I think that's where that change takes place, and it shows a testament to you,
There,
obviously.
there's a lot, there's a lot of good programs out there, and there's things that work for people. What worked for me is, with the program that I do, is there's definitely like 4 components. It's not only nutrition, but it's the community. We have Facebook pages, and we have like Zooms we can go on, and there's always positivity. There's other people struggling. You get to see their struggles. You get to,
Yeah.
you're like in the same boat as a lot of people. And
Yeah.
and there's also education. So there's an educational part of it, that you're always trying to just, work the mind. And it's not something that you do. I don't view it a diet, because a diet means it ends. You
Yes.
have to
Right.
change your
Right.
mindset that you're going to change the way that you eat, and
Yep.
the way that you you eat every single day. Now, does that mean you can't have that piece of cake, or you can't? Sure you can. You can't have that. Sure you can. But what you need to do is try to get to your goal first, and then every once in a while you go out to dinner, or you go to the party and you overindulge in alcohol, right, Carm? Um, just saying. Look, I've been there myself a few times.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
Even came into work a few times, like with a really bad hangover. That wasn't good. I used to send people out to get cheeseburgers and French fries and a Coke for me. So didn't happen often,
That's
but it
so
did. I should
yeah,
have
that's
drank a
so
lot
well
more when I
put
was on
though.
the desk, to be honest with you. But
We've
anyway, I
all been
didn't.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to
But that's
get
it. It's
I want to explain, and somehow I want to piggyback on what you're saying too. There's a whole greater discussion about the food supply in the country and how we are being fed by companies real garbage, essentially, and how the things that are the ingredients that are in our food, between the additives and the preservatives and the pesticides. You research other countries; those places don't have the garbage that we have here, and thus you don't see the rates of heart disease and
yep.
diabetes
Cancers.
and extreme cancers and,
Cancers,
and extreme obesity. We as a country, it's a whole bigger political discussion, but that's part of it too. Is like we're being fed garbage, and if you don't choose to look elsewhere and make a difference in your life by eating healthy, by trying to avoid carbs or whatever your
Right.
your dietary thing is, it's a whole mindset. Exactly what you both are saying. Truly.
Yeah, and listen, there's been so many documented stories on how most of the processed foods that we consume have these addictive properties to them, to where like you're setting yourself up for exactly what Terry Joe was saying. For people like what we used to do, all 3 of us used to do, and we were put in a position where we didn't. Some of us would bring food in. But sometimes you didn't have that option. Sometimes you didn't have that time. So it was much easier to get a quick grab meal. And those quick grab meals are almost always processed shit food. And not necessarily your delis and stuff, but so even if those are good foods, sometimes we're just not making the best choices because we know we want the bacon, egg, and cheese, because it tastes good and we're not worried about it. But yeah, I mean, we could talk about the food.
Right, we could make that.
Or you work in a place like Rockland County, where lunch in Rockland County is like the best you've ever had, and it becomes a thing where if you're free and you're not on a call, you have lunch together quickly before the next thing comes in. And somebody like Toby Schuler, he's a pusher, he's like a drug pusher of food.
And just on the thing, like you said, way back when, there weren't the choices that there are today. You can make good choices in going out to eat, and you can.
Yeah.
But there wasn't always that availability back then either, So, but like you said, we could be on a whole tangent of that.
I'm going to move to in the next topic here, I'm going to kind of go to kind of a bit of a downer. I think we need to cover this. I think it needs to be discussed. Kind of, it
Mm-hmm.
probably ties into the question about your worst dispatch memories, but it's also going to tie, I think, into two profound losses that we collectively suffered in Troop F Zone 3, Troopers Dave Brinkerhoff and Dave Lane. And I want to kind of get your input on that and talk about their memories, their legacy, their surviving families, and things that you've done to keep that together. It'll also lead into the golf tournament promo I know you want to mention. So talk about that briefly. Talk about your worst calls that you've received and some of the hard stuff you've dealt with in your line.
So, again, you kind of forget, I think, I don't know, I just push stuff to the back and I just move on, because I think, number one, as a comspec, a dispatcher, you have the bad call, and if it's not the end of your shift, you get rid of that call, it's kind of over with, and then you have to go on to the next call. You don't have time to process maybe what just happened, especially if it's a busy day. Now, I feel for people that take these calls in in major cities. I can't even imagine. I can't even begin to think what their life is like when they're taking call after call after. Now, a lot of times they have a call taker, and then that goes to somebody else who dispatches the call. But that to me would be totally chaotic. Now, we have had very chaotic days. But one of the things, I was trying to reflect back on some of the calls that really, when you asked me that, they came to the forefront of my mind. One of them was when I was in Highland, and so this was before cell phones. This was before you could ping phones. You didn't have that technology. It was old-fashioned. You went to a phone book. You might have been able to Google white pages. I'm thinking, but I had a woman call me from Florida, the state of Florida, and she was concerned for her brother, who she believed was going to kill himself. And she didn't know his address. She knew he lived in the Esopus area, and he was in a trailer park. Okay. So, now you get her callback number, you have his phone number, but typically you don't want to call him. So now we're trying to find out where he lives, and you're trying to run registrations. You're trying to, again, like I said, you run his name in the computer system to see maybe it's it's a P.O. box. You're not going to the post office on a Saturday night at 8:00 at night to find out from the post office what P.O. box where he actually lives. And so I finally made the determination that we were coming to a dead end with everything. Nobody knew him. We really didn't know what trailer park, because there were several. And so I called him. I was like, you know what? I have no other choice. Time is ticking. I just called the guy, and he picked up, and we had a conversation. But he didn't. I said his sister was very concerned for for him and what was going on, and he ended up killing himself when he was on the phone with me. And so that was a call that and then we still didn't know where he was, which was even harder. They ended up finding him. They found that we get the trailer park, we get the kind of car that he had, all the kind of stuff. I mean, if I remember correctly, he might have told me what kind of car he had. I don't even know. Maybe we ran his name because it was quite a while ago. But that's one that always stuck with me because I felt like, could I have done something different? I don't dwell on it. One of the things, Carmen, you also asked about PTSD and my thoughts on that. With dispatchers, PTSD is obviously a very true thing that happens. And it does happen to dispatchers as well. I think that people don't think that we take things to heart, but we do. But what annoys me with a lot of things with PTSD is sometimes I think people use it as a crutch. Not truly, if they're truly having issues with it. But sometimes I think people think, well, I don't, I can't handle that. Anyway, I don't want to get on a whole tangent with that. So But anyway, so you process that. They get to the house. Obviously, it was too late. He did what he did. Um, but I remember leaving that night, and this is how things were handled back then. If you're a police officer, if you're a firefighter, if you're a CO, if you're a dispatcher, you're supposed to be able to handle that stuff, and you go home and nobody cares about you. Back then, you went about your business. Nobody asked how you were. Nobody really gave a shit, because we all thought we were supposed to be okay, and we thought we were all supposed to be okay. And so I just remember the sergeant saying to me as I'm walking out the door, "Hey, okay with that call?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." And I reflected on my drive home, questioning myself. But we go on. You put it to the back of your mind. I mean, it bothered me for a few days, and then I went about my business. But that was one call that bothered me. The suicidal people that you can't help, that you try, but if they've truly made up their mind, there's nothing that you're doing to talk them out of it. It doesn't really go away. There was two other ones when I was in Catskill. This one's a little bit briefer, but we had a motorcycle fatal, and the mom called the station because her son was supposed to come home and he hadn't come home, and she knew there was a motorcycle fatal, and she was screaming at me, "I know it's my son, just tell me." And of course, you don't tell people that on the phone. So I said, she wasn't driving, somebody else was driving her. And I said to her, "You need to have who's ever driving you pull over right now, and I'm going to get a trooper to where you are." And, that's what we did. But that was a tough one because I knew that her son was dead, but it's not the right thing to do. I mean, sometimes you have to, sometimes you're just in that position, but she was local and she was driving around, and of course she couldn't get to the scene where the accident was. And so anyway, that was another one. And there was one other one. I think a mom's, a mom when her kids die is just the worst. And we had a fatal up on Catskill Falls, and the mom knew the kids that were with this kid called them to say there's been an accident and this is what's happening. And the mom was camping down the line and she was coming up, and I swear she called me every 15 minutes for an update. And the worst thing was that I knew her son had died. And so I made her come to the station because she wanted to go to the scene. And I'm like, "You can't go to the scene. You need to come here because he's not going to be there by the time that you come up here." And sometimes you have to lie to get people to where you need. And when they told that mom in the station, there is nothing I can still to this day, and I'm sure the two of you have dealt with this if you've done death notifications, there's nothing like a mother's scream when her kids die, and that doesn't leave you. So those were the three that really, that hit home when I really thought about it. That brings me to Brinkerhoff, which of course I was working when Brinkerhoff died, myself and Diane Berg. And so we knew the shit was hitting the fan there. But we heard the helicopter pilot screaming on the radio on state. I don't know how he made it from the Sydney Tower he came in clear as day to our station. And we didn't know it was Brinkerhoff, but that was obviously a terrible day. And then, we still have to answer other phone calls. We still have to answer the phones. People don't care that we just had a death in our station. They have a problem. And you have to deal with their problem while you got tears coming down your eyes. It's those kind of things are terrible. And for dispatchers to deal with that, is there PTSD from that? I would say there is. Yeah. I processed it in my own way. And then when Dave Lane died, of course, out of the same station, 2 years later, I had called in sick that day because my son was homesick and my mom had something to do. And so I wasn't there for the initial call, but I responded with the fire department because it was in our fire district. And I have to tell you, because I drive the fire trucks as well, and when I pulled up to the scene with one of them, I don't even remember putting the vehicle in park. And I jumped out and my tunnel vision went like this. And I remember Pat Cullen, who was the first one on the scene, said to me, "Watch out, there's wires." Like there was wires down, and I just wasn't even thinking. Right. To those were 2 days that were really bad. I was also working when Mike Kelly and Ken Porman got killed in 2000. I was working in Catskill, but I knew it was bad. And, so there's been that trauma. And, I'm sure at some point everybody loses somebody in the state police that they know. And I wish it wasn't that way, but, it happens. Devastating. But from those, I guess there's good that comes out of it. You have to hope that, number one, people realize it can happen to any of us or to any of them. Maybe it makes you sit back and think about a few things, like, is that really worth, like responding that way, or whatever you happen to be doing, the way that things go down. And from that, we've met some amazing families, the Brinkerhoff family and the Lane family. As sad as that is, I don't know I ever would have met all of the Lanes that live up in Dexter. And they are a phenomenal family. And so are the Brinkerhoffs. It's just that the Brinkerhoffs are out near Buffalo, and we just don't really travel out there, whereas we travel 3 hours to Dexter. And they still have a gathering once a year in November around the date of his death. And now the Brinkerhoffs do a golf outing and a run. I know the run is done in June, I believe. They still do a fundraiser for the Brinkerhoff Foundation, I believe. And then the Lanes do a golf tournament in June. We have our golf tournament that Chris Quinn started like the year after Brinkerhoff died, which was 2007. And then we combined it as the Brinkerhoff Lane golf tournament after Dave Lane passed away. And that's been going on since 2008. And of course, Chris Quinn retired, then Jeff Dovich took it over, and now Jeff Dovich just retired. And so myself and Jamie Davis, who was a trooper out of Cooksaki, she became an investigator. She just got promoted. Well, she just got not promoted. She got a position up in division. I can't remember where she's going. Can't remember what I did yesterday, so I can't remember what the hell she's doing. But anyway, so we're taking it over, and we are doing it on September 19th of this year. It's going to be held at the Sycamore Golf Course, which is in Ravenna, and it's $120 a person. So, and they do a 4-person scramble. It's a lot of fun. The Lanes always come down to it, and it goes for a good cause. This year, the donations are going to the Dave Lane Scholarship Foundation, which is typically where it usually goes, to the high school that he was from, the Brown High School up in Dexter, and Hugs, which is, so Dave Brinkerhoff had a daughter. She was 8 months old when he was killed, and she has Down syndrome, and she is just a sweet, sweet girl, Isabella. And she belongs to Special Olympics, and she also belongs to this other group called Hugs. And I got to look it up. It means Hope Unites Gymnastics with Special Athletics. And so the golf tournament this year is going to get split evenly, whatever we take in between those two organizations.
All right. What I'll do is I'm going to clip that, and I'll try to get a separate clip so we can kind of share that and push that out for you. But there's two things. That was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was a lot, but in a good way, because like one of the things for me is, and it's stupid because you should know, and I think a lot of people should know, but for me, I did know, but you never, like, as you're talking, you just don't think about it. One of the things was like when I think you said Lane, when Trooper Lane passed away, and you're dealing with that call, or it might have been Brinkerhoff, I'm sorry, and you're dealing with that call. You're literally taking that call, and then that essentially ends, which doesn't end, but it ends for that moment. And now you're receiving the call for somebody that's saying, hey, my boyfriend stole my car, and this, or it's somebody that you deal with on a constant basis, and
right.
It's kind of, I don't want to say BS, but it's regular,
it's BS.
And you still, yeah, exactly, but you have to deal with it,
yeah,
and you have to carry on, and then you get another call for larceny or whatever, and it's just, a lot of people don't realize that you don't have that time to say, oh my God, my life is horrible, I can't believe what I just dealt with. You have to say, New York State Police, this is Dispatcher Gallagher, how can I help you? And you just have to carry on and go. And that's something I think people, whatever, you just understand what you and this profession goes through on an everyday basis.
Yeah.
And then one other little thing I wanted to bring up is that I had one of our followers, to somebody I know really well, Debbie Rivera. She was a city of Middletown police officer who's retired and now does dispatching for a local PD. And she thanked us for having you on, not only for a female, but also for a dispatcher to show a different light within the first responder / law enforcement and what they deal with. And I do think it's important. And as you talk, I find out how more important it is the more and more you talk. So thank you again for coming on.
You know, the other thing while we're on that is, you know, I know now that, like every job in the world, they're having problems getting dispatchers, they're having problems getting comp specs for the state police. And I'm going to hit on that for a little second. You know, they never paid us well. Why I stayed, I don't know. I always wanted to be a nurse, and should have been a nurse because I would have made buku bucks, and I could have been a traveling nurse and made way buku bucks. But I didn't. I stayed where I was. I don't regret staying. I have made so many friendships on the job, and that's priceless. But anyway, you know, right now they changed it. Well, when I first started, I was a grade 10, which I can show you I can explain what that is in a second. But now they do it when you come on with the state police for a comp spec. You start as a grade 8. Then after a year, you go to grade 10. And after another year of training, you go to grade 12. So I looked it up, and you know what? I don't know. Let me see if I can find it quick. No, it doesn't really matter. It's somewhere in this vicinity. You can look it up what the grades are. A grade 8, right, well, in 2025 is now $40,000. A grade 10, I think, jumped up to 42. And a grade 12 jumped up to 44. And then you go through the step process. If you're familiar with the state, you have steps. I'm going to tell you what I made after 34 years with the state police, because you can look it up through See-Through New York if you really want to know what I make. I don't give a shit. I made my base salary was $56,400 after 34 years with the state police.
Unbelievable.
So if people want to know why I work extra, that's why. You know, now it was a little bit more than that because I tried to get some overtime in the last couple of years, which I didn't get tons of overtime, but I did get overtime. I worked at the state fair. That's another story that we could go on a whole tangent about. But I had a lot of fun at the state fair. I can tell you that. Carmen told stories about those. But anyway, but yeah, so, you know, and division now, I think, realizes that we can't get comp specs because they don't want to work overtime. They don't want to work holidays. They don't want to work weekends. And who's going to do that for $40,000?
Yeah.
Several years ago, there was a posting when I worked at Sorgady's for KPD, which is Kingston Police Department. Their full-time dispatcher was starting at $52,000, which was $4,000 less than I made after 34 years with the state police. So unless they bring those salaries up, you're not going to get them. You're just not. Nobody wants to work that kind of work for that kind of money.
To take home all that PTSD, to deal with all the stress, to deal with what you have to deal with for that level of money is absurd.
Yeah, but here's the thing. And it's no disrespect to you individually, Terry Joe, or the dispatchers that are doing this job, but why do that job for $40,000 when you can work at Home Depot, Walmart, or be a Uber Eats driver and make the same money?
Exactly.
Here in 2025. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
What are we doing?
Right. And I'm not saying we need what police officers make. We don't go on the road. We don't go face to face with them. We don't carry guns. Although should have done that a few times. But anyway, that's another story. Had a lot of weird people come in, which reminds me, we have to get to, because I wrote all this shit down because it's pretty damn funny. The everyday jokes. You asked me about everyday foolery. Are you ready to go there? Because I know.
Which made Catskill one of the best places I've ever worked.
This is what I totally miss. And I'm sure that everybody that watches me is waiting for this seg right here because they know that it's fucking hilarious.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we could have got fired for shit that we did. So I actually have props. Not really props.
Oh,
But I have to
God.
look. Do you know Pat Cullen? Jay, do you know Pat Cullen?
I don't think Jay knows him.
You missed that. You missed that, mother. Anyway, he retired, and he's gonna be. I know he's watching this because I told him they were gonna put me on. He goes, "Are you kidding me?" So he retired in 2016. We did 2 flyers for him. One of them had this picture. It's actually a glove on the top of his head, but it looks like a condom. And then we did the real one, but look what it says. He got trouble like 3 times. So he could have retired there, but nope, he got in trouble. He lost 30 days. Nope, he could have retired there. Nope, he lost that. So that was his retirement. That was his retirement flyer. Like, we did shit like that.
Hands down, funniest guy I've ever worked with. Funniest dude I've ever worked with.
I laughed every single day when he was working. So now we got to bring up Joey Caputo. I love you, Joe. I just want to say I love you, Joe. But I know you made a comment on the thing, so. But we would.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
In 30 seconds, we'd have Joe pissed off in the morning. It was hysterical. But Pat Cullen would think of a theme song that he was going to play when Joe came in the back door to set the mood for the day. I mean, it just never stopped. I have a whole file of ha-has that we did at the station. I mean, it just doesn't end. You know, like, and I was going to throw them out, and I go, I can't. I have to let my son do it when I die, which I have to give a kudos. I was going to do this right in the beginning. And now I go on these tangents, so you got to pull me back in sometimes.
Yep, it's all good.
But I do have to give kudos
These are good
to my
tangents.
son.
Keep going.
My son, Patrick, is the love of my life, and he's the reason for everything at this point in my life. He's a firefighter paramedic in Newport News, Virginia. So I always take credit. I say the reason he's a firefighter is because when I was pregnant, I was still going to fire calls. I didn't go into like burning buildings at that point, but I would direct traffic. And one time I was like 9 months pregnant, and I drove a fire truck to a brush fire, and everybody was yelling at me. I'm like, they didn't tell me I couldn't drive. Like, I just drove the truck. But anyway, so I always tell him that the reason he has the firefighting in his blood is because of me, because I used to go everywhere with him when I was, pregnant with him. But he's the love of my life, and he's just a joy. But the other thing is, we had, Joe Caputo was always in the station when he wasn't there. His picture was on the clock. His picture was in these little cars. He was driving them. You would open the tel key drawer, the tel key thing, and his picture would be in there. These guys in the back room, we would go and take pictures of him, and we throw them in their file cases so that when they opened up a file, they'd come up with Joe Caputo. He was just the best. We had.
I'm gonna show a Joe Caputo photo, and you're gonna tell the story
the dead
behind
deer.
it.
Yeah.
That's Joe Caputo's desk, and that is an actual dead deer roadkill. That you look very closely, you can see the sleeve of a trooper holding the dead deer up in the seat. So tell the story to this.
Well, it was a dead deer. I don't know why we decided it was a good time to put it at Joe Caputo's desk. He wasn't there, and the trooper brought it back. I wish I could find that quick, but I can never find pictures on my phone quick. Oh yeah, he brought it back on the troop car.
Drove back to the station on the hood of the troop car.
Yeah, he's a Long Island boy now, but and then we put it there, and it was the weekend or something. We decided we couldn't leave it for him to come in because he had a couple days off. That wouldn't have been a good situation. So we took a picture of it, and then what else did we do? Just everywhere. So one of the other things is, I have to say, is Dave Lane. Dave Lane was one of the biggest jokesters as well. So he had this little oh, I wrote it down. What would I want to call it? Like a
the key logger. The key logger.
Oh, well, the key logger. It's a keystroker. Oops, it's upside down. The keystroker, which is probably backwards for you guys to see it. So the keystroker, he decided he was going to put it on the sergeant's computer, and what would happen is this thing would just randomly start typing when you're typing on it. And so we had a sergeant at 2:00 in the morning. She was doing reports. And this thing, however he installed it, started typing on her report, and she thought somebody hacked in. She called division. Division called captains, lieutenants. They came down to the station. He fell out. He came in the
At
next
2 in the
day.
morning.
Yeah, he came in the next day and was like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "I don't know. Something just started on my computer." And he was like, "Oh my God, I did that. He fell on the sword." He got in trouble for that. I don't know. Probably lost a few days. I don't know. Now he'd probably lose 30 days. A good, but that was hysterical. He used to put the
What
little
about the
trooper,
Annoyatron
well,
device?
the chirper thing.
Joe
He put it up in
Caputo's
the ceiling, and you'd be like, "What
Yeah.
the hell is that freaking noise?" And you didn't know where it was coming from. I mean, there was just joke after joke.
To provide context for the viewers, just to clarify that too, Dave Lane, God rest his soul, put a device above Joe Caputo's desk in the office of the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. It was in a drop-down ceiling, a drop ceiling with a tile. He put this Annoyatron device, which basically vibrated intermittently in the most annoying way possible, right above the desk of the grumpiest person in the station. And I say that lovingly because I love Joe Caputo. He's one of my best friends. But that was classic. It was driving him insane, if you remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of things that drove Joe insane. Like when we would take the crime scene tape and I would put it across the front because I didn't want it to come into communications, and we wrote on it the No Joe Zone. He would get mad. But we had water balloon fights in the station. We had the little pellets. Somebody brought in pellet guns, those little pellets. Probably the station cleaner is still finding them in the station. What else did we do? It was just, we used to go on the radio and call Fred Horsemeyer, Investigator Horsemeyer, on state, and his boss got really pissed at that and said, "Can you please ask them to stop calling you on state?" And he's like, "You don't understand. I can't do that."
That's not going to
Leave me
happen.
alone. The pepper
You know
spray.
what's so-
One time
Yes.
somebody
Well,
pissed me off. Pepper spray. One time somebody pissed me off at the station. And so we were sitting around, we were having breakfast. And I can't remember. It was probably Cullen. It could have been another trooper. They came over and they put pepper spray by me. And I was so pissed off. I picked up this pepper spray and I just went, psh. They all back up. I'm still sitting there. I'm eating my breakfast. I'm like, I don't give a shit. And they're like, "Why did you just do that?" I go, "Don't fucking piss me off. I don't put pepper spray in front of me." Well, then I did start coughing. I had to get up. But it was just like, yeah.
Yeah, pepper spray will do that to you. That's so funny listening to your stories on like how down in Orange County Troop House, we were doing almost the same exact stuff, like pepper spray. So for pepper spray, what we would do, it was at the end of our 2 shifts or the overnight shifts, to mess with the other trooper, we would pepper spray the door handle so that when they got on the troop car and they wiped their eyes, they'd have pepper spray in their eyes. And it wasn't really funny because it's dangerous, but that was back in the day.
Right.
For another thing we used to do is so communication specialist dispatcher that we spoke about before we came on.
Yeah.
The one in particular, when I worked overnights, we used to go to specific locations, either high in drug areas or maybe a strip joint, if you will. And I'd be in the parking lot and I'd say, "Can you run the following registration? I'm out at this location." And it would be his license plate.
Oh,
I would
yeah,
run
yeah.
his license plate and he would try to come back with it. And as he was talking, he'd be like, in the middle of a sentence, not wanting to say his own name for the registered owner.
Yeah.
But yeah, we would do the same stuff. It's just funny. Oh,
We
one more thing that we did was dead roadkill. We ended up putting a dead skunk in a trooper's troop car as if the skunk was driving the troop. So not only did you have that visual, but then when you opened the door, they had the Serve Pro that car.
Oh, yeah. You're not getting rid of that stuff. Oh, my God. One other thing and I did write this one down because I thought about this last night real quick, was one time it was my birthday and Chris Quinn and Chuck Francis got me a cake and they brought it in. They didn't get candles, so they lit a flare and they brought the flare into the station. And the whole station filled with smoke, that disgusting sulfur smell.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
somebody's like, go get a bucket of water. We're going to stick it in the water. Well, what do flares? They're not supposed to do what?
They're
Go out when it
waterproof.
rains. So they stick it in the bucket and it didn't do anything. It was just shit like
Hey,
that
Terry,
all the time.
somebody commented on our page when Carm introduced you that you were infamous for some type of dessert. Was that what's the deal with that? That's awesome because you have to watch it in order to see what you just did, so no one will know unless they watch it. Don't say anything. If you guys want to know what just happened, you literally have to watch it because that was amazing.
On point, Jay. On point. I love it.
Oh, that was perfect. Good job.
Oh, yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, some of them,
Oh,
some
I
of
know
them
a few
came out
guys that
black
would love
too.
that.
You know, I'm not going to
Yeah.
go down that rabbit hole because I did go down the rabbit hole at my retirement party about the black, and my nephew, who's now a trooper, said that's when I went off my script, and I talked about that because somebody bought me something for my retirement party and they made me open it in front of everybody. And so that whole situation got brought up and I went off a tangent and my nephew came up and said, that is it. You are done talking. And he took the mic away from me. I don't know.
Oh, that's funny.
Whatever. They can't take a joke.
Be you. Always be you, Terry Joe.
I am pretty much. And most people that know me.
If I'm not
No.
mistaken, I think you, during a promotion party, there's a promotion party like 2012, 2013-ish, where you presented Scott Youngblood with I think it was you that presented him with a photo of me drunk at a children's party riding a pony.
Oh.
Was that you?
Or Joe, or Joe might have.
Or your Joe? Yeah.
It was either me or Joe, one or the other. We always made sure that, that kind of stuff was never forgotten. We probably had it blown, or maybe he had to put up to a poster
Somehow,
size, but
I actually just found a photo of this too. Somehow that photo made it to Haverstraw and got posted in the
there you
men's
go.
bathroom of me riding a tiny, tiny pony holding deflated balloons.
Yeah.
During a very fun time in my life. Not so much. Anyway, good memories and good pranks for sure. That's the places like nothing I have ever experienced. SP Catskill, and shout outs to people like Chris Quinn and Chuck Francis and Scott Youngblood, Joe Caputo, Scott Don, Lance Aguiar, Billy Fitzmaurice, the people who were fun, Jimmy Fitzmaurice, the people who were mainstays there, and yourself and the Comspecs who ran that place, man. It was just the best memories ever, truly. Legendary place with the most amazing cases. I mean, the most complex, crazy homicides I ever worked were in Catskill. Would you agree, Terry? Like, it's insane there.
Yeah. Some of them were pretty crazy. And that, the other thing too that the public doesn't understand, because they watch TV, so they see that cases get solved within an hour, right?
Yeah.
And that is not how it works. And people, I even see now on Facebook, it's like, well, the police aren't saying anything. They're not writing down. They're not. Well, because they can't.
Yeah.
Because there's an investigation going on. And, there was one, it wasn't ours, it was down Sorgaty's, but, they were taking paint chips off the road. They have to get sent to a lab. They were looking for cars. They were looking for, and this all takes time. And,
Yeah.
they don't like the silence, but there has to be silence. We had that one homicide on Toolhouse Road, and, it took a while, for that whole thing to come out and where the body actually was. But, it takes time, unfortunately. We want results right away, but the investigators that do the work with every agency, they do amazing work. And when they truly have something that is beyond their scope, especially the smaller agencies, they will reach out to somebody that can help them to hopefully get closure for the families. But yeah, Catskill is a crazy place, and a lot of cases. Like there's a lot of deceased bodies. Older people, and I remember the one time in November, it was like, I don't know, was it a 4-week period, maybe 3 weeks, and there was like
we had 31
30
bodies in 30 days.
31 bodies in 30 days. And most of it, like, it wasn't necessarily homicides, but it was just people dying, accidents,
Suicides. Yeah.
And
That was
yeah.
November 15th to December 15th, 2007. I remember because I was
God.
there for
Oh,
that.
I
And
can't. Okay.
31 bodies in 30 days, and they were suicides, unattended deaths, drug overdoses. There was a bad batch of heroin during that time. We had a lot of overdoses. We had
Any
the Linda Holgerson
unattendeds in there?
homicide.
Any unattendeds in that?
Yeah. Yep.
Figured as much. But
Yeah.
Terry, Joe, you're a good advocate for this position, and you're a lost. There's not many people that are around that have that same quality. Again, like I feel, what are we at? An hour and 10 minutes. I feel like I've worked with you already. I feel like I can go in a room and be like, Terry Joe, and like give you a high five. Like that's the way I feel with you.
Well, we can.
And we will. But no, just some people you just don't get that. And a lot of people. I saw recently on social media somebody wants their child wants to be a police officer, and their child's a little bit younger, and like I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but for the life of me I can't promote that to somebody in my family right now, knowing what the police officers are going through and what they would have to go through. And if I do, I think Carmen and I talked this a few episodes, and if I do promote it, it's with that full transparency on what you need to expect if and when you go through with it. You know what I mean? I can't do it. I just can't do it.
Yeah,
Very
it's
true.
we have to hope that it's slowly coming back around. I mean, it does seem that there's a lot of support from the public for police. Of course, what we see is all the negative stuff. We can't have a society without police. It's not, what are you going to have, a lawless society where people can just come up and kill you and nobody's going to do anything about it? So in the reality, and the people that totally hate the police are the first ones to call them when something happens to them.
Yep.
So in reality, I'm not saying there didn't need to be changes made. I do think that there had to be some more accountability. And I don't think that was a bad thing. I don't think the cameras were a bad thing, because I do believe that most of the time it's really proving them to be correct, because people want to make the cops look bad, so they did. And unfortunately, to me, it always seemed that division would take they would take the complainant's side as opposed to hearing the story first, and getting both sides.
Yep.
It just seemed to go that way. Hopefully that's maybe a little better, although I'm thinking it's probably not, because everything goes to the AG's office now. But I do think that, like I said, it had to, something had to happen, and it has. The one thing on that end, since we're talking about body cams, is I do not agree with what Division is doing. And that is, they are looking at body cams to get people in trouble. And that is so wrong. And I can't believe that the PBA hasn't really stomped their feet on that to say, this is not what they were put there for. If you have a personnel complaint and you find something else from it, so be it. But there are captains, lieutenants, and higher ups looking at those body cams. I can't imagine you don't have something else to do, because you should.
Let's clarify that, Terry Joe. Let's just clarify that. They're arbitrarily pulling this body cam footage with no specific formula to it. So they can just be like, all right, let's go. It could be literally say, all right, here, Troop F, Zone 3, Catskill Station, this trooper, I'm going to pull the last 3 hours of his shift or her shift, and I'm going to make sure that their Stetson's on, that they're using this correctly, that they're using that correctly, that they're speaking correctly, that they're not farting on camera, like whatever it is, they're going to make sure that they're doing correct. And if they're not, they're going to bring it up, and they're going to say, well, why did you, why are you busting? Why are you talking to your wife? What, did you curse at your wife? Is that what happened? And to your point, now they're bringing up all these complaints when that's not what these things were made for. Correct. They're made for either to protect the police officer / trooper in the event of a crime, or to show that they did something wrong.
Correct.
And to them bring charges against them because they did something wrong.
Right.
During an active investigation or because of something, not because some colonel up in Albany has a hair on his ass for Joe Schmo because he heard through the grapevine that this is happening.
Yep.
So
the other part of that too is on a supervisory level to sit being one of the people who was tasked with having to watch body cam videos and review them, sometimes there's a body cam video of a 6-hour incident where the trooper's body cam is going for 6 hours. For a state police supervisor to sit there for 6 hours and review a body cam on the off chance that something is derogatory or being done nefariously by the trooper is a tremendous waste of time and resources when there's not enough time as a supervisor. I've said this before, and other people might disagree with me, but I don't care because I know the truth. The hardest jobs in the state police, no one fucking cares, is the hardest jobs in the state police are that of the station commander and the senior investigator, because you're responsible for all the evidence, you're responsible for the body cam footage, you're responsible for the audits, you're assigned to do the investigations. You don't have time to do that during the day, and the additional responsibilities of randomly auditing those videos is a very time-consuming process. Now, I don't know if it's as an agency, if it's being taught from the top to do that, but there are certain commission officers who have done that in the past, who I'm not going to name, but they have gone through and they're randomly targeting and looking at with the specific purpose to do that. So
you can't use those two words simultaneously, though. You can't say randomly targeting, because it's not randomly targeting. It's specifically targeting. It's specifically coming out. Yeah. No, it's not. I don't mean to be a dick about it, but
no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
There's no randomness about it. It's a hair on their ass about somebody that they may or may not like, or somebody might told them is doing something that they don't like. So now let's open Pandora's box and see what happened 3 months ago during the A-line shift. You know what I'm saying? And for you, I go based off of I'm stupid, but I'm not. You can't pull the wool over my eyes. I know that shit goes on. You are saying it from a person that has been in there and has actually done those things, reviewing the cameras, and knows that gets done. So, like you said, everybody can say whatever the fuck they want, but this shit happens. Maybe not on a daily basis, but on a more regular basis than not. Terry Joe, I'm not rushing you off, so we can take this as long as you want. But
no.
People
don't want to sit here for an hour and 15 minutes. First of all, although I hope that they've enjoyed it.
Yes.
I hope I didn't disappoint all these people that's put me on this pedestal. I felt like I should have had a little crown on, but I was around a long time.
What's the date of the tournament before I forget? Because somebody's actually asking me that, and we need to put that on the air too.
It's September 19th.
September 19th.
Should I give you my phone number, or I don't care?
Don't put it on here.
Because they have to contact either myself or no.
No, don't put it on here because we don't know who's.
You don't think there's a sugar daddy watching?
What we'll do is we'll talk afterwards, and maybe I can put a little clip up and we could share it.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, we'll do that.
They could put the number on the podcast maybe, and then I could contact them, or you could get it to me or something. Yeah. So, it will be limited in the aspect, but we can still have like 120, 130 teams. So that's a lot of people on the course.
And I happen to be texting Joe Caputo, Scott Youngblood, and somebody else about this right now. So September 19th.
They know because I do have Nicole Del Rocco and myself, after she retired and I retired, we came up with a Zone 3 kind of retired email list, but there are people that are not retired that are on it, and every so often we try to get together. And I was very disappointed because my next place I wanted to get together was going to be Catskill Mountain Moonshine, and he closed. What the fuck is up with that? That's bullshit.
Yeah, he's relocating. It is.
Yeah, well, better not be in Florida or some stupid place.
No, he'll be local. They have some plans. They just don't want to put everything out there right now. But no. So once again, thank you for coming on. Share, like, comment, do all that stuff. Carm, there's one thing I want to bring up that's been bothering me for the last hour and 18 minutes and 46 seconds.
Did I use the word taping?
Well, yeah. Well, there's that. There's a lot of things that bother me. Yes, your sign is crooked, and it makes me feel so uncomfortable.
It's actually not crooked. It's just that the camera angle is offset.
Oh, gee, here we go.
But you're such an OCD bastard. You can't let it go.
We've been on for so long. My computer's going dead, but I got to plug it in. I don't want to just.
Why don't we say goodbye and end this quick so you know? ghost us?
Yes.
No.
And we lose the whole thing.
Or people go, oh,
Yes.
no, I'm plugged back in. I'm good. But,
Okay.
just the one thing, I do want to just give a final comment on dispatchers, ComSpecs. I did write this down. They're still out there. I would ask everybody to, treat them with respect. Remember, like, if you're a road patrol, to come in and ask them if they need a bathroom break would be nice. That's not always done. And I bring that back to the person that trains them to make sure that they really care about their dispatchers. We are the people that take the calls. We are the ones that send you to the calls. I always say, you have no idea how many you didn't go to today because I was able to solve them or help the people over the phone and nobody had to go and talk to them.
That's called a stroke job.
But whatever. Doesn't everybody like to get stroked?
Well,
anyway,
yes.
we very much. I'll keep it somewhat clean.
Yeah.
We more than thank you for, on a personal note, I worked with you a long time and I got to know you. You're like a sister to me. We may not talk for 3-4 months, but when we do, it's like running into family again. And I can say with absolute certainty, that what you folks do and have done, I've witnessed it firsthand, and you do God's work. And people do not appreciate communication specialists, dispatchers, for what they do, for the sacrifice that they make. And we, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for making part of my career as enriched as it was because of you being the fucking stellar human being that you are. And everybody that worked at Catskill, pretty much everybody I've ever met knows that about you. And thank you truly from the bottom of my heart, for what you and for Winslow and Essie and Diane, God rest their souls, for what they've done. Truly, it's amazing work. And thank you sincerely.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And so does everybody else that's out there. So, we love our jobs. Otherwise, we wouldn't stay in it. I mean, the people that don't love it quit. They just go on to something else because they can't do it. And that's why I'm still dispatching, even though I really don't want to do that anymore. I really would like to know what it's like to be retired and not have to work partial weekends, which I have to go and work at 2:00 today. So,
yeah.
All right, get some time off. Thank you again, Terry Jo, for everything, your service, and for being on with us. We deeply appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay. I enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too long for people. Love you
No.
guys. Love everybody.
No. No one fucking cares.
No one fucking cares.
Have a good one.
Bye.